Hey guys, we're back and we're doing math paper 4H from June 2011. Alright, question 1 is really simple. They're just saying in a sale the normal prices are reduced by 15% and the normal price of a television is $640. So you got to calculate the new price of the television after the sale reduction. So first of all, you have to establish that the prices are reduced by 15% off the price. So the total reduction in price of the television is actually just 15% or 15 over 100 multiplied by 640. Now if you calculate this will come up to about $96. Now this was the amount the TV was reduced by, because 15% of 640 is the amount the TV was reduced by. Now this amount should be taken away from the original amount to find the new price. So it's 640 minus 96, which will give you 544 as the new sale price of the television. Alright, so in question 2a, John throws his bias coin 120 times and it shows head 90 times. Heads. So he throws the coin once more and you have to estimate the probability that the coin will show tails. Now, let's say for example I had a dice, okay? And on this dice, I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, like a regular normal dice, right? Okay, so let's say I threw the dice 2 times, and out of those 2 times, or let's say I threw the dice 6 times actually, and out of those 6 times, it showed up on 2 twice. So that means the next time I throw it, I'll have the same probability of throwing it, approximately. So it'll have the same 2 out of 6 probability of throwing it. So the same thing applies here. Now he's thrown it 120 times, right? So out of 120 tries, and he's gotten heads 90 times. Meaning the probability of him getting a heads is 90 over 120. Now as you know, probability always adds up to 1. And in this, it's always a fraction and all the probabilities or all the likely events will add up to 1. So, if I do 1 minus 90 over 120, I'll get the probability of the other possible event that could occur, which is tails, and that'll just be 30 over 120. And that'll be the probability of getting tails on the next throw. So this girl Carly throws the same coin, which was in 2a. She throws it 200 times. Now you have to work out an estimate for the number of times the coin shows tails. So as we figured out in the previous question, the probability of throwing a tails is actually 30 out of 120. Now, that means for every 120 times the coin has been thrown, 30 times is going to show tails. Correct? So, if we want to find how many tails in 200 times, all we have to do is take this fraction and multiply it by 200. So we're going to get 30 over 120 multiplied by 200. And if you just do your math, that's going to come up to 50 times where the coin shows tails. Question 3 is pretty simple. There's a list of ingredients for making apple and raspberry crumble for 6 people. Alright? And this person wants to make apple and raspberry crumble for 15 people. And she wants to know how many apples and how many raspberries she'll need. So first of all, this is a question about ratios. Now, for example, a ratio is just like comparing 2 things. So in this case, let's say, to make apple food for 6 people, so you need 230 grams for 6. That's one ratio, correct? Because look, for 6 people, you need 230 grams of apples. Now, you want to find out how many grams of apples for 15 people. So you want to find out the number of grams. We'll call it X. Alright? So, you want to keep the same ratio of apples to people as you had here. Okay? So what you're going to do is you're going to put this algebraically. And how you're going to do this is 230 over 6 is equal to X over 15. Now remember the same things, which is like the grams of apples should be on one level and the number of people should be on the other level, on the denominator, or the opposite. And what you're going to get is multiplying both sides by 15, you're going to get X is equal to 230 times 15 over 6, and so then you'll need 575 grams of apple for 15 people, Now, the same thing will apply to raspberries. So, in this case, we need 200 grams of raspberries for 6 people. So, Y amount of raspberries, we'll say the amount of raspberries needed for 15 people is Y. Y amount of raspberries for 15 people. Now again, you do the same thing. So 200 over 6, because any ratio can just be written as, like for example, 1:2 can be written as 1/2. Okay? So yeah, so you write 200 over 6 is equal to Y over 15. Multiply both sides by 15, and you're going to get Y is equal to 200 times 15 over 6, which is just 500 grams of raspberries. Sorry, that's a bad raspberry. Alright, question 4 is really simple. They're saying the length of Rachel's journey from home to work is 72 kilometers and it takes 1 hour and 20 minutes. You got to find out her average speed in hours, kilometers per hour. Now, first of all, there's a formula you need to know, which is average speed equals distance traveled over time taken. Now, in this case, you want it in kilometers per hour. Okay? Now, if you look at the distance they've given you here, it's in kilometers, so that's fine. But the time here is in 1 hour and 20 minutes. This 20 minutes, we need to get rid of it and put it in terms of hours. So we have speed will be equal to 72 over, now we need to fix the time and put it in terms of hours. So 1 hour is fine, but 20 minutes in terms of hours is actually 20 divided by 60, because there's 60 minutes in an hour. And so that's just 1/3. That just simplifies to 1/3 if I divide both top and bottom by 20. Okay, so it's 1 and 1/3 hours. So you just divide 72 by 1/3, and what you're going to get is an average speed of 54 kilometers per hour. Alright, question 5 is very simple, 5a. First of all, before you do this, I need you guys to look here. Now, on the side, it's written like these exponent rules, and they're pretty simple. So if you have two exponents is like x to the power of 2, that's an exponent. If you have that, and the exponents have the same base, which is this number, which is this term, right? And you're multiplying the two exponents, what happens is these get added together, just like this, so 1 plus 1. Now, if you're dividing, the opposite happens. So if you have, with the same base, these powers get subtracted from each other, like here. Now, if you're just multiplying two different things, you multiply the like terms out. So numbers and numbers, you multiply them together, you get 12. You multiply exponents and exponents, so a times a gives a to the power of 1 plus 1, because multiplication. And b is just b to the power of 1, right? So it just stays as a b here. Now, let's apply it to these questions here. So 5a1 is just a to the power of 1 times a to the power of 1 times a to the power of 1 times a to the power of 1, which is just a to the power of 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1, which is a to the power of 4. The same thing here. Now you multiply the like terms out. So you're going to get 30ab. And the last one, you're going to get q to the power of 8 minus 2, which is q to the power of 6. Question B is just as easy. All you have to do is solve 5 minus 2y equals 12, and you just have to solve for y. So to do this, we're going to get all the numbers on one side and keep the y on one side. So to do that, we're going to subtract 5 on both sides. So subtract 5. These two and this two cancel to become 0. So you're going to get minus 2y is equal to 12 minus 5, which is 7. Now we're going to divide both sides by negative 2. These two and these two cancel to give me 1. So 1y, or y, is equal to negative 3.5, because 7 divided by 2 is negative 3.5. Question 5c, very simple. You just have to work out the value of v when w is equal to 6. Now, all you have to do is just substitute the 6's as the w's. So you're going to get v is equal to 6 squared, because w is get replaced with 6, minus 2 times 6. Okay, and that just simplifies to 36 minus 12, and so v is equal to 24. Question 6 has given you trapezium, and in 6a they're asking you to calculate the area of the trapezium PQRS. Now for future reference, the area of any trapezium is half multiplied by a plus b times h. Now a and b are just the parallel sides, and in this case these are the two parallel sides. And the height is the remaining straight side, meaning this is a straight side. Not this, not this, not this, but it's this. Okay? So now, applying this to this question, we're going to get area is equal to half times 6 plus 8 times the height, which is 5. And we're going to get half times 14 times 5, which is actually equal to 35 centimeter squared. So the area is 35 centimeters squared. Okay, question 6b is asking you to calculate the length PQ. Now we'll label this PQ as X. And if you give your answer correct to 3 significant figures. Now this seems tricky at first, but really look at it. First of all, I suggest you split the shape into 2. So now you've got a right angle triangle, and you've got a rectangle over here. Over here, right? You got a nice rectangle. Okay, so after you've set that apart, now since you know that this length and this length are equal, because obviously this is a rectangle, correct? So that means that this should also be 5 centimeters. And over here, this length here should be, because since this whole length is 8 and this length is 6, that should mean that this length here, or this length, is just 8 minus 6, which is just 2. So this length here is 2. Now, if you look at your triangle, it's a right angle triangle. And you can apply a lot of formulas to a right angle triangle. You can apply SOHCAHTOA, you can apply this other rule called the Pythagoras theorem. Now, since you don't have angles here, you can't use trigonometric rules. So you can apply the Pythagoras theorem. Now, the Pythagoras theorem is just h squared equals a squared plus b squared. And h squared is your hypotenuse, and a squared and b squared are the other two sides. And remember, this can only be applied to right angle triangles. So in this case, our hypotenuse, which is the side opposite to the right angle, is x. So substituting all of the stuff into this equation, we're going to get x squared is equal to 5 squared plus 2 squared. And so x squared is equal to 25 plus 4. And if we square root both sides, we're going to get x is equal to square root of 29, and x is equal to 5.38516, which is in 3 significant figures, it's just 5.39. Alright, question 7. 6 numbers have a mean of 5. 5 of the numbers, they're written here. And the other number is x. You have to figure out x in question 7. Now mean is nothing but the average. Alright? And the average, for example, if I had 3 numbers, 1, 3, and 5, and I wanted to find the average of these numbers, what I would do is I would add these together, and I would divide it by the number of numbers I have. So in this case I have 3 numbers, 1, 2, 3, and so I just divide it by 3. So it's just 4 plus 5, which is 9, divided by 3, and so the average is 3, or the mean is 3. Now in this case, I have 5 of the 6 numbers, and I have the average, which is 5. So that means that 3 plus 2 plus 7 plus 6 plus 2 plus the other number, the 6th number, x, over 6 numbers, because there's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 numbers, have a mean of 5. We'll have an average of 5. Now all I do is I solve it like a normal algebraic equation and solve for x. So I'm just going to do this a bit fast. So 3 plus 2 plus 7 plus 6 plus 2 is equal to 20 plus 20, and 20 plus x is equal to 30, because if I multiply both sides by 6, I'm going to get 5 times 6. Times 6, these two will cancel, and I'm going to get 5 times 6, and it becomes 20 plus x equals 30, So if I subtract 20 on both sides, x is equal to 30 minus 20, which is 10. So the number is 10. Alright, question 8 is asking you to use compass and ruler to construct a perpendicular bisector of the line PQ, which is this over here. Now, I don't have compasses or protractors on an iPad, so I'm just going to explain to you and post a video under teaching you how to construct a perpendicular bisector. But I'll just explain what it generally is. Now, a perpendicular bisector, if you use your compass and thing and you follow the video, it's just a line that intersects this line and cuts it into exactly half so that these two sides are equal. Alright? That's a really bad perpendicular bisector I've drawn, by the way. And what also happens is the word perpendicular means that it's also at 90 degrees. So not only does it bisect it perfectly in half, it also forms a 90 degree with the line. Now just use your compass and follow the video and you'll get it. Question 9 tells you the length of a fence is 137 meters, correct to the nearest meter. Now you have to write the lower bound of the fence. Now first of all, the upper bound and lower bound, I'll explain what that is. So let's say I had a number 10 and it was rounded to the nearest 10, okay? So it could have, it was, let's say I had a number 10 and 10.0 and it was rounded to the nearest units place, meaning this place, okay? So it could have either been 9.5 rounded up to give me 10, or it could have been 10.499999999, or just like, which is just pretty much 10.5, rounded down to give me 10. So that's just basically what the upper bound is. So the lower bound would be this, obviously, because it's the lower number, and the upper bound would be this. Now, a quick way of finding it, I'll just show it to you with this question. So, for example, the length of the fence is 137 meters, correct to the nearest meter. So 137, correct to the nearest meter, which is that place. Now, what you do is you take that number, so you take the units place, which is just 1, because that's the units place, that represents the units place, and you divide that by 2, correct? And you're going to get a number like 0.5, 0.005, or whatever. So in this case, you get 0.5. Now to find the lower bound, all you got to do is take your original number, 137 in this case, and subtract this number here, 0.5. And that's going to give you 136.5, which is the lower bound for the length of the fence. Now for 9.2, to find the upper bound, all you got to do is take this number and add it onto that. So 137 plus 0.5, which is 137.5. And that is the upper bound. Okay, question 10 is asking you to express 126 as a product of its prime factors. Now prime factors, I hope you know what prime numbers are. They're 2, 3, they're just numbers which are not divisible by anything else other than themselves and 1. Yeah, and 0 and 1 don't count. So if you want to express 126 or any number for that matter as a product of its prime factors, use this method which I'm showing you now. So you have 126. Now what I like to do is draw a little box around it. Okay? Now 126 is actually divisible by 2, and 2 is a prime factor. So you're going to get that divided, and you divide 126 by 2, and you're going to get 64. Now 64 is also divisible by another prime factor, 2. And so you divide that by 2 again, and you're going to get 32. 32 is again divisible by 2. So you're going to divide that again. So divide this by 2, divide this by 2, divide this by 2. And you're going to write that below, and that's going to become 16. Now 16 is also divisible by 2. And so you're going to divide that by 2, write it below again. 8 is again divisible by 2. You're going to write that below, and that's going to be, 4. And 4 is also divisible by 2. You're going to write 2 there, and 2 is divisible by 2, and you're going to end up with a 1. And so, to express it as a product of its prime factors, it's just the multiplication of all of these numbers, which I've just drawn a box around. So it's just 2 times 2 times 2 times, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 126 is actually equal to 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, or 2 to the power of 7. Oh my god, I made the biggest mistake in the world. I'm going to start this over again. Sorry. There are the silly mistakes coming in. I made a big mistake, especially in the beginning, sorry. You gotta make sure you get the division correct and don't be stupid like me. So you have 126 and you divide that by 2 and you actually get 63, not 60, I don't know what I said, 64 I think, sorry. You get 63. And then you divide 63. 63 is divisible by a prime factor of 7, and you're going to get 9, because if you divide this by 7, you're going to get 9. You divide this by 2, you're going to get 63. Divide this by 7, you're going to get 9. 9 is divisible by a prime factor 3. You divide this by 3, and you're going to get 3. And 3 is divisible by 3, and you're going to get 1, which is what you want. So 126 is actually equal to 2 times 3 times 3 times 7. My bad. So yeah, that is your prime factor. That is 126 as a product of its prime factors. Alright, so question 11, they're asking you to calculate the length of LM. Now I'll just call LM X for this question. Okay, we'll just call this length X. Now, for this question you have a right angle triangle, so you can apply your SOHCAHTOA rules, and your SOHCAHTOA rules, I hope you guys know them. Sine equals opposite over hypotenuse, cosine equals adjacent over hypotenuse, tan of the angle equals opposite over adjacent. Now, in this question you cannot use the Pythagoras theorem because technically you have no other side, but you have an angle, so you can use the SOHCAHTOA rules. So, you have to figure out what function relates the opposite side and the hypotenuse, right? Because the hypotenuse is the one opposite to the right angle. And if you actually look at that, it's the sine function. So it's this function right here. So that means that if we can construct a small algebraic equation, so sine of the angle, 42, is equal to opposite side, which is opposite, because x, over the hypotenuse, which is 9.3. Now multiply both sides by 9.3, you're going to get x is equal to sine 42 times 9.3, and so x is equal to 6.222914, which is just in 3 significant figures, 6.22 centimeters. Alright, thanks a lot for watching. Please comment if you have any questions, rate this video, and subscribe to this channel. Please subscribe. Thank you. And watch the next part of this video tutorial. Thanks, guys.